Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Go 24/7 podcast. Bryce Koon alongside Sonny, Shipp, and we're here to talk about the latest news, and that is the Tigers have picked up another commitment. Cai Bates makes his decision, and it was a tough decision, but he chose the LSU Tigers. Sonny, kind of what are your early reactions to, one, them going outside the state of Louisiana? That hasn't happened. It feels like a ton in this class, but a big pickup for the Tigers in that defensive backfield.
Yeah, and it's a position that that you hope that you would be able to address with with kind of, you hate to look at just the stars, but a higher profile out of state guy that kind of complements the in-state haul that you've gotten, and you got to give Robert Steeples, you got to give Frank Wilson, the entire staff credit for for really being able to kind of come up from what I perceived as coming up from behind and being able to get Bates away from Tennessee. 5 days ago, I would have thought that if you would have asked me where's Bates going right now, I would say Tennessee. And I think, and a lot of other people were in that same camp. So you really got to give the staff credit for closing the deal, and it's a situation to where they were the early leaders for Bates. Things kind of, he visited. You kind of started looking at all the other cornerbacks that you had on roster. I think that might have created a little bit of maybe a little bit of doubt in his mind. But the staff really honed in on the depth chart and how many opportunities there are there. Yes, they signed a lot of young corners, transfer corners in the past couple of years, but they showed him a way that they see him getting on the field. And I think when you look at his size, he's got that size, 6'1", 6'1.5", 185, 190 pounds. So he's got that size and he's got that length that when you look at the other cornerback types in this class LSU has, Wallace Foster, Jawan Johnson, those are two guys that come to mind. Andre Evans is in the same boat to where they're small. They're the smaller type of guys to where this guy is the one that you can put out on that, you feel like you can put him out on that island. He can be physical. He can give you some man coverage, can give you some zone coverage. I think it's just a really nice pickup and really nice when you look at it, the fact that how they came from behind to get him.
Yeah, you talked about coming from behind, and he told Steve Wiltfong earlier in the week, kind of breaking down the three finalists. He said about LSU, definitely, I'd say the culture of the program and the overall opportunity and plan. And I wanted to kind of go back to that. I mean, when you have a group where you have, like you said, they brought in so much in this secondary and young guys with multiple years of eligibility in the portal, obviously recruited, obviously, safeties and corners in this 24 class. But I mean, what kind of work does it speak to the staff of Steeples and company to say, hey, we know we have all these guys, but we're still going to have a plan and a purpose for a pretty highly heralded guy? I mean, what can you speak to the job that the staff has done, and maybe what is that plan and purpose you feel like they have for this kid?
Well, I think it's easy. I think right now it's fairly easy for opposing coaches to point to LSU's cornerback room and say, look how many young guys they have. Look how many young guys they've signed in the since BK has been at LSU, since Robert Steeples has been in Baton Rouge, and so to overcome that, you really have to do a good job of explaining not only the plan that you have for a guy like Cai Bates, but you also have to do a good job of explaining that plan that you have for the other guys who are in that room too. So Cai Bates can see, okay, so so this guy's more of a nickel right here. This guy's more of a nickel right here too. So really, instead of a coach saying, well, look, they got four corners on the roster right there, give LSU credit for being able to come up and say, yeah, no, actually you're going to be a boundary corner. These guys are more slot. These guys are going to play some dime. This is probably a potential safety down the road. And so in being able to relay that and convey that information, especially over the phone, because none of the contact that they've been able to have with Bates has been in person. So it's all been over the phone. It's all been over by Zoom, by text, by calls. So you really have to communicate effectively, and you have to have that plan of how you're going to communicate that plan. And I think it's obvious that LSU did a good job of that.
Did a good job as well. You got to give credit to Sherman Wilson, who's been in on a lot of these guys. Sonny, when you look at the support staff, guys that are not on the field coaches, I mean, how much does that planning and that purpose go into what you were just talking about of saying, hey, this is the hierarchy, this is where we feel like we're going to slot guys? The job that Sherman Wilson continues to do with this 2024 class.
Yeah, Sherman Wilson's one of those guys. I think, Jordan Arsamont, Bobby Barham, J.R. Belton, Will Redmond, all those guys in the support staff, they really do. You hear the recruits talk about them, like Tylen Singleton. When you talked about when I was asking Tylen Singleton about the guys behind the scenes, who were some of the other guys in addition to Matt House. He says Sherman Wilson's like a brother to him. He says J.R. Belton, how Tylen Singleton and J.R. Belton's brother got close because they have that fishing in common. They love to talk about fishing and stuff. Talked about Joe Sloan. Even Joe Sloan's, though he's the quarterback's coach, he played a role with Singleton because of his ties up to the area from all of his time at Louisiana Tech. And so, it's not – one thing that you see with the staff is you see the recruits really doling out a lot of credit to people who are kind of behind the scenes. Not only your Matt Houses, not only your Robert Steeples or Kerry Cooks or Frank Wilsons, but really, kind of highlighting the job that some of the lesser known guys in recruiting, some of the younger guys who may not have the fancy titles, but who really put in a lot of work to help the on-field staff lock up these guys.
The addition of Cai Bates, we talked about it, a top 110 player, whether it's composite or the 24/7 sports ranking, consensus top 12 cornerback and around a top 20 player out of the state of Florida. Sonny, where does this set up? And we're going to talk about it, obviously, with the Bayou Splash coming up this weekend. But where does this set up, the Tigers for the rest of this class? And are they done in the secondary? Is this all they're going to go with, in your opinion, the rest of the way?
There's gonna be some fluctuation, and there's gonna be some changes with the current commitment list that we have right now. Senior evaluations do that. Some guys don't progress the way that they're expected to progress, and then others just blow up. And so you can look at the commitment list right now that has 20 guys on it, and I think you can. You can say, okay, a couple of these guys probably won't be here when the ink is dry after the early signing period or after signing day. But, so in saying that, you've got a guy, Kobe Black, he's a big 5-star corner out of Texas. He's a guy who still says that he's going to take an official visit, a guy that, if you can get a Kobe Black, you don't turn guys like that away. But as far as looking at the other cornerback types, I think it would have to be a situation where someone just really blows up, or you have an unexpected opening to add anyone else to that cornerback room. I think with safety, safety may be a little bit of a different situation, just because you wonder if, you look at the guys that they have. You've got Deshaun McBride right now. You've got Joel Rogers. Those are guys that, except for McBride, I guess McBride could be a guy you could see maybe patrolling the middle of the field if he stays at safety. But I think Rogers is a guy you kind of peg as more of a in the box type of guy, playing him closer to the line of scrimmage. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if you saw a cover type safety maybe pop up and maybe get some strong looks. But, the defensive back room right now, when you look at it, I think you've got good numbers, and I think you've also got the quality that you need. And, so now it's just all about, I think the biggest task now for Kerry Cooks and Robert Steeples will be, keeping everyone intact, keeping what you have, and then just keeping, scouring out there to see, if you have one of these guys that just pops up and comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, we talked about that in the podcast earlier this week with Glenn about how you have some guys that at that safety position that are really versatile, and wanted to get your thoughts on that as we kind of wrap this up. You bring in Cai Bates, but look, this secondary as a whole is guys that really feels like this staff's doing a job saying, hey, we are finding athletes that can do a lot of different things, whether they're playing in the box, whether they're playing in the middle. Is that something that you've seen out of this class? And is that a testament to saying, looking ahead at the schedule and seeing certain teams that may want to throw the ball a little bit more, maybe guys that want to be a little more physical, and saying, we got to have a secondary that can do both?
Yeah, I think so. I think The jury's still out on Deshaun McBride. Is McBride a safety? Does he end up growing into a linebacker? I think there's still a little bit of question right there. Although I think I lean more towards safety right now. Joel Rogers, I think he's a guy that is pretty much you can kind of pigeonhole him to the position that he'll probably play when he gets to LSU. But there's a lot of versatility. I think you've got some nice versatility, particularly in the cornerback room too, because you got a guy like Jawan Johnson. Jawan Johnson, he's played very little cornerback, very little safety, very little in the defensive secondary. But when you look at him in camps and stuff, you see some things that could that you think could translate to either position. Whether or not he's over the slot, whether or not he drops back and plays on the last level. I think he gives you some options right there. And so you do have some versatility. I guess the one thing that when I look at with this class and with Maurice Williams going to Houston, committing to Houston now, that kind of eliminated some of that because you could see some guys, Deshaun McBride, for instance, we were early on, it was, okay, is he a safety or is he a linebacker? And I think while I just said that I think there's still some question with that, I do think that you're maybe starting to get a little more clarity with him to where you kind of start to see like, okay, if he does move to linebacker, it will probably be a couple of years down the road, not something that would happen that would be imminent. And so that position versatility is something that, and we see it on the offensive line a lot too, a guy being able to play inside, able to play on the edge. And I really think that's where the college game is kind of going now to where, the transfer portal has become such a big part of college football now to where I think, position versatility is absolutely crucial because, if you've got a guy who could play three spots in the secondary as opposed to just one, times get tough or you start getting some depth there and you start creating some competition, you're playing more than just one guy there. Instead of automatically jumping into transfer portal, you can say, well, hey, would you like to try this position out? And so I think that position versatility is really going to, can really be advantageous in the time that we're in right now in college football.
Cai Bates, the big addition for this class, pushing them a spot ahead of Oregon into the number 12 spot per the 24/7 Sports rankings. Sonny, appreciate your time, man. We got the Bayou Splash coming up this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that's all the time we have for today on the Go 24/7 podcast, the instant reaction to Cai Bates committing to the Tigers. We'll catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.